So our second class on dependent origination. By the time this class is over, we shouldn't need to ever go back to this topic again. It'll all be so perfectly clear, we'll just never have to think about it again. Under adults, everything's fine. We can move on to the four numbers. A couple of weeks of that, we'll be done. You guys will all be set.
Enlightened?
Perfectly enlightened.
Or really depressed.
So, we used to talk about something called Mick Enlightenment, where you thought it's kind of like the idea that you can go to a seminar or a class or something and come out of it and kind of be enlightened that it would fix everything by just going to a class, usually a very expensive class. Right? Kind of like going to McDonald's through the drive-thru and just say, "Could I have my enlightenment, please? Would you like fries with that?" Yes. Fries would be lovely, thank you. So, yeah, sorry. We don't make any promises here.
It's not a quick fix.
So, dependent origination. So I hope everyone has had a chance to think about it, what we talked about last week. Actually, I should just say I hope everyone remembers what we talked about last week, because impermanence and we kind of go through the week and get busy and we kind of lose track of what was said. So, but that's okay. That's part of the process. So, does anyone have any questions they'd like to raise before we get started from last week? Anything that wasn't clear, or you thought about after, or got confused about, or that kind of thing?
We'll let you know.
I'm sure you will.
No, I mean, the job.
Oh.
He's lucky.
Yeah, we have microphone jockeys, is that right, sir?
This half.
All right, microphone technician. So any questions before we start? No. Okay. We'll get you warmed up. So, I think it worked fairly well last week to kind of have more of an open discussion. So we do have our microphone technicians or microphone jockeys, whatever you want to call them, so that we can get questions on tape and that kind of thing. But please, let's make it as open a discussion as we can. If we're kind of going over time where I need to cut the discussion off, then I'll do that. But let's try to have more of a dialogue. I think it was quite effective last week, so let's try to continue that format this week. So, last week we talked about causes and conditions. Right? We talked about, mainly, has everyone still got the handout? I hope everyone brought it. Does anyone not have it? And if not, can you just rearrange yourself so you can share with someone who does? We'll probably do it for you.
It's this handout right here. It's dependent origination for last week and this week.
So if you don't have it and you're not sitting beside someone who does have it, you may want to just quickly rearrange yourselves so that you can see it.
Thanks so much.
Everyone please rise.
I'm coming to attend Greg's presentation. Big bow to him. And thank you for his time. His two babies at home is fighting. Please take a seat.
Okay, is everyone set? Okay, if everyone is done what they need? Yeah? Okay. All right. Okay, so mainly what we talked about last week was the second page of this handout. Which is really talking about the difference between a cause and effect, a condition. How a lot of it depends on our own perspective, how a lot of it depends on kind of what's going on at the time and how we designate things. So something may be a cause in one sense, it's an effect in another sense, it's a condition in a third sense. Right? So it's quite difficult sometimes to actually distinguish sort of what is cause, what is effect, and that kind of thing. So, but we talked about how cause and condition is really, when we look at our lives, when we look at the present moment, we should really see cause, condition, effect, and everything. And we should not be lazy about that. We shouldn't try to just kind of instantly kind of solve the equation, right? How like, okay, well this is the effect, therefore that's obviously the cause, these are the conditions, got it squared away, right? But it's quite often more complicated than that, and a lot of it depends on our own point of view. And if we just kind of get settled into one point of view, then we kind of just get caught into a rut where we don't really understand anything. Right? Dependent origination, when we see things through the eyes of dependent origination, we actually kind of let go of trying to be fixed on anything. Right? We let go on trying to have just one explanation. Right? We try to remember that even though something might be, you know, a cause or effect, we try not to simplify it so that we think it's always going to be that way. So let's go a little bit deeper. Right? Let's talk about, hopefully by now people have read the chapter in the textbook, because I'm going to be relying on that a fair bit today. And on the first page of the handout, what I really want to make sure we get done today is these 6 principles, right, that are in the textbook. So they're explained in the textbook as well. But we're talking about these 6 principles. So effects arise from causes, temporary appearances depend on causes and conditions, events depend on the law of cause and effect, many come from one, existence relies on emptiness, and a Buddha comes from a human being. So as much as we can, some of these are probably not going to be, we won't be able to go into them in a lot of depth, but I want to at least touch on them to try to give people a better understanding of how this relates to dependent origination, how this relates to cause and effect. And hopefully that will set us up a little bit better for when we go into the Four Noble Truths starting next week. So the first one, effects arise from causes. So this seems simple, right? Yes? Anyone not think it's simple? Okay. Let's read the textbook and then see what we think after that. So could I ask, I'm not sure, I've got an old version of the book, but could someone tell me the page number? It's in the chapter on dependent origination, it's just a little ways in. Is it page 21? Page 18 of my book. Oh, perfect. Well,
Mine says 18. The beginning of the chapter, yeah, but I
Yeah,
just took
so-
it right to effects arise from
so if you have this book, it's page 21 in this book, it's page 18 in the old book, if you have that. So would anyone like to volunteer?
And 15 in the real.
And this is the really old one. So effects arise from causes. So would anyone, maybe one of our facilitators, volunteer to read this section? Can we get a microphone?
Effects arise from causes. Dependent origination first depends on the presence of a cause and then on the right conditions before the effect can manifest. If there is no cause, there can be no effect. If there is a cause, but conditions are not right, then there also will be no effect. A cause phenomenon is a primary, direct requirement to produce an effect. A condition phenomena is an external, indirect requirement to help a cause to produce an effect. Good? For example, all human beings have the seed, the necessary cause, to become Buddhas within them. But if this is not supported by good conditions like studying the Dharma, upholding the precepts, and so forth, then the effect of Buddhahood will not arise. Similarly, a person who has the latent cause of anger within him may be able to control his anger for many years. However, if the conditions are right, Such a person may suddenly explode seemingly without reason. As you can see, the cause is the primary requirement for an effect, while conditions are secondary requirements. All phenomena in the universe are governed by causes and conditions. Nothing exists outside of this relationship.
Thanks very much. Okay. So, again, and this relates a lot to what we talked about last week, right? That you need to have, before you can have an effect, you have to have a cause. But we actually sometimes forget, right? We sometimes kind of lose track of the fact that whatever exists, it actually does have to have a cause. Right? Particularly those, for example, people from other religious backgrounds. Right, so if you're there and you're cooking dinner, and suddenly the ceiling falls in, right? Or a plane crashes into your house, right? Something like that. So someone who is from a theistic religious background might say, well, it was God's will. Right? God decided. Right? You might say it was fate. Right? So that's what that person might say. If you're an atheist, if you're someone who doesn't believe in any kind of supernatural power, anything like that, you might say, well, it was just random. Right? It was just bad luck. Things happen, and it was random. So in Buddhism, we don't believe in either of those extremes. Right? We don't believe that it was preordained, that it was fate, or that God decided. But we also don't believe that it was just random. Right? Things don't just happen for no reason. It's cause and condition. So when we look at our lives, when we look at things happening in our lives, and we say, like, or other people's lives, and we say, like, why did this happen? The answer is causes and conditions. It's not because they did something wrong. Right? It's not because, okay, well, he was a bank robber, so therefore the airplane landed on him. But that doesn't make any sense. It's not random. Things don't just happen by themselves. Right? There has to be something that precedes it, that causes it to happen. And when we look at something and we say, like, it's random, what I think we mean as Buddhists is that it's just the cause and effect is too complicated for us to actually unravel. Right? And hopefully from our discussion last week, you got an idea of how complex cause and condition can actually be. Right? That it's not just one cause, a couple of conditions, and therefore an effect. Right? That it's actually this whole web of causes and conditions all interrelating with each other, all interacting with each other all the time. Right? So that at any one point in time, and it kind of goes back to what we said about the apple pie. Right? But how long does it take to make an apple pie? 13.8 billion years. Right? Because all the causes and conditions in the universe have to come together just the right way. Right? And not only physical things, but also mental things. All have to come together just in the right time, the right way, for that particular thing to happen. So we could call that random if we want, but it's not very useful. Right? As Buddhists, we say that's cause and effect. And this is actually really crucial, right? Is that effects arise from causes, not the other way around. Right? So first you have the cause, then you have the effect. And we spent, the first part of the course on karma. Right? And if you don't understand this, you can't understand karma. Right? Because you have questions. One popular question that we always ask is, like, why do bad things happen to good people? Right? Or why do good things happen to bad people? But if you understand how cause and effect works, if you understand how karma works, then it's very clear. Right? So if you have time going forward, remember, time is just a condition. Right? Time is a condition. For anything to happen, you have to have some interval of time, whether it's very, very short or very, very long. So, if we take an action here, when do we experience the effect?
Sometime in the future.
This way, right? So when time is going this way, we experience it sometime here. And how long, like we talked about last week, depends on the conditions. Right? So sometimes it can be instantaneous, sometimes can take lifetimes, thousands of years before something happens. Right, so that for this particular cause to result in this particular effect. So for example, if you steal something, so we kind of get back to the karma type examples, right? So if you steal something, if there's a policeman watching, that's a condition which might result in the effect happening sooner. Right? Or if there's witnesses or whatever. If there's no witnesses, right, if you don't leave any traces, then the effect of you being caught and punished for it might be much, much later. So, if I'm at this point in time, what else is happening at this point in time? Before I do the action. Other conditions, other effects, right? So going into this moment, there's all kinds of other causes in the past that go into this present situation, right? So, I'm going to use red and green. So red is a bad action.